Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Freeman Files here in the J Free 906 podcast. Glad you're here tonight. We're going to have another great show. We had a good one last night with Corey and Maul, and we were talking about the bloodline, the Oak Island bloodline, and that was a really good show. If you haven't seen that one, you should really go check that out. It was a lot of fun and a lot of information that we covered last night. Tonight, we have another great show. Two guys that have presented in the War Room on several different occasions and have written books we'll cover that as we go along here tonight, but this is going to be a lot of fun. I did want to say real quick, talk about Oak Island Con 2025, which is in the works. Those of you that were here last night, you already heard me talk about that, but it is happening in September this year, September 23rd and 24th. Of this year, and thanks to Tony Sampson and the Salty Dog Sea Tours, we were able to put all this together. There's a few seats left, a few tickets left available for those who want to participate in that and come and see the presentations that we have lined up. All the information is either on my website, which is jfree906.com, or you can go to saltydogtours.com. That's Tony Sampson's site, saltydogtours.com. You can go there and check it out, get more information, and buy your tickets through Tony's site there for that. Going to be a lot of fun. You never know who you're going to meet. And now we're finding out that chances are good that the museum is going to be open on the island. So great stuff all around. I am still fighting a little bit with a cold here tonight. So I'll do my best not to be coughing on screen and interrupting our show. So you might see me drop off for a moment or two while one of our presenters is speaking so that I can clear my throat, but I apologize for all of that. Let's see what else. And for those of you who are interested in the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, that starts next week, Wednesday night. After the show is going to premiere on Tuesday night, we'll be talking about it on Wednesday night and going on throughout their entire season. This is going to be a really good one. So we hope you guys will join us for that. And let's see, I think that's all we got. So without further ado, these two gentlemen, John Edwards and Scott Clarke, you've seen them both on the Curse of Oak Island. And this is something that I love about the opportunity that we have here at the J Free 906 podcast to have these folks come on and join us. And they are able to then, in most cases, give us more of the story, because we know that when we watch the show and they're presenting in the War Room, time is limited and we only get a few minutes of a very long presentation that they do. This gives them the opportunity to come on and share more of that story with us. And we actually have the slides and everything to go with their presentation. Now, they're still under NDA, so there's still some certain things that may pop up that they cannot share with us, but we're going to get a lot more of that story tonight. So without further ado, let's bring them on. John Edwards and Scott Clarke. How are you two doing? I'm glad you're here.
Hey, Jeff. Glad to be here again.
John, you're muted. If you want to click the, I tell you, I'll watch for that right off the bat. Awesome. How you doing?
Good. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing fantastic. Good to have you back. And Scott, good to have you back here as well. Really nice to, and I tell you, it's so, I'm honored always to have you guys come on the show and join us, because as I was saying earlier, it gives us an opportunity to hear more of the presentation that we did not get during the TV show. So they bring up, you guys, it's funny how they do that. I suppose they don't tell you when you do your presentation, you probably know when that's going to air, but later on they get little snippets of you here and there as they go through the season, and you probably don't even know when that's going
to never know. Yeah. I think they've used me like 10 times this year for the FIPS first half of the season, just again and again and again.
Yep. So, well, as long as you got that paycheck coming in from each time you're on, that's good, right?
I do not. To my wife's concern, yeah.
Yeah, right. So anyway, we thank you very much for joining us. We really do, because like I said, it's good to get a little bit more. Unfortunately, the constraints of TV, they got 42 minutes to give us an episode. And when you guys are presenting, even though it's on the edge of our seat as we may be during that, we don't get enough of it. And for you guys to come on and share this with us is just a treat. It really super, is super for all of us. So we appreciate that again very much. So I tell you what, this one, it was interesting to see you two working together this is something that John and I have talked about many times over the years about how, John will say quite often it takes a village, and for you guys to work together on stuff, as in Corey and Mole and Christopher Morford working together on things. Fantastic. I mean, how did that come about? I mean, one of you describe that, or both of you, a little bit, that you two were able
John,
to
you
work
want to?
together?
Well, Scott and I have been in communications quite a bit. We have overlapping research. And Scott was in the States, and we set a time to meet.
Mhm.
And we met in an undisclosed location and started to literally share presentations. And the more we shared our presentations, the more we were seeing that our work, individual work, overlapped quite a bit.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, we don't think either one of us is wrong necessarily. So we kept going with it. And the more we went with sharing the collaboration and the work, the more we found commonalities. And, talking to Jake and others, Jeff, if it's repeatable,
Mhm.
right, there must be something to it. So we
Yep.
kept finding different themes, different ideas, different methodologies, different things that were being shown and said, that were repeatable in both of the presentations. And we just looked at each other. Look, neither one of us. We don't think either one of us is wrong. So at that point, we're like, wow, we're on to something. And I guess it kind of snowballed from there, Scott. I mean, would you say that was pretty accurate?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and as you guys know, Rick Lagina loves people collaborating. He really
Yes.
encourages
Yes.
that. We knew that John and our research was similar, and when I started hearing about the Masonic connections in his books, of course, that's right up my alley. So
Mhm.
we joined together and met up and talked many times, and went from there.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is that, and that's something that I've said a few times before is that, that each of you, that have been presenting in the war room, many of you have, I would say, bits and pieces of the story, the who, what, why, where, when, and how that Rick is always trying to get to. Many of you have pieces of it that work together, and
Mhm.
and it's funny because I think that in the end, by Rick bringing you all together at some point, we're going to get some answers. And now we're really kind of working on the Masonic angle, and also the Knights of Malta, which has come into play here. And you have some portions of that in your presentation as well, I've saw.
Yes.
I mean, I think we're starting to nail down the who of the who, what, why, where, when, and how. And it's getting very interesting. And I think all the people watching here would agree, um, that we're finally getting close to some answers, because there's the two, and I'll stop talking here a minute and let you go. But there's the two sides, or maybe three sides, of the people that watch this show. And those are those who just are about treasure, treasure, treasure. That's all they care about. Find the darn treasure and get on with it. Then you've got the folks that love the history. They want to know the history, the who, what, why, where, when, and how. I'm one of the people, I want both. I'd love to see them find the treasure, but I also want to know, why is it there, and who brought it there, and where is it now? What's going on? So that history side is got a lot of us enthralled in this as well. So all right, I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to let you guys go. So how do you sent me your presentation. I have the slides here. Guide me through this, and we're going to pretend we're in the war room watching.
Yep.
What
I mean, basically, we thought it would be a good idea to just share part of our war room presentation, our PowerPoint, with you guys. We, of course, had to remove quite a bit of it that we may still look at in the next season. But there's also lots of things there that you guys have not seen, which I think will be interesting. So,
All right. So we got the beginning here. Planning session, New York, June 2024.
yeah. So yeah, that's John and
it?
I met up at a location in New York. I was there for another reason, and we thought it'd be a perfect time to share research and discuss what we were looking to do going forward, and what we wanted to focus on.
All right. Oh, there we go. This was a shot from you guys actually in the war room together. That was pretty neat. That was in March of 2025. Okay. Episode 14.
Yep, that's our So that was our title page. As you know, we're focusing on the books that John acquired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is really interesting. Go ahead.
So John, I'll let you go ahead with the.
Oh yeah, well the books came out of an estate in Israel. I acquired them in 2019. The book was part of a larger collection of 5 books. Um, and so I acquired 2 of them. I knew the significance of what I was seeing, and from there it kind of snowballed. Um, it's interesting because the books have ciphers and codes and marginal notes and things of that sort, that have, in my mind, direct relevance to Oak Island and the mystery. And then the map, of course, the that came out of the private collection, that was provided to me, which is a map of Oak Island. So
Mhm.
you kind of start looking at all the clues, and it points to Oak Island, and something significant may be being buried at Oak Island.
Mhm.
So given all that, I said, wow, there's something here. Um, Being a simple person myself, I started to decode what I could, but again, it takes a village. And I started to reach out to people with different expertise. Scott was one of those persons with expertise and a Masonic background. So it kind of snowballed from there.
Mhm. Now, this was interesting here. When I saw this particular slide, this was one that during the presentation, Tom Burns and I we were going through, and we saw this stamp, this blue stamp you see in the upper right picture there, and we tried to zoom in on it from the taking a screenshot from the show, and we were trying to see exactly what it was. And then we knew it was German language, and so we were trying to get some help to decipher exactly what it said. Now you're able to help us with that a little bit. It looks like.
Yeah, the books themselves have a stamp. That is the Rosenberg group stamp. As you know, Rosenberg was in charge of acquiring, among other things, information on the artifacts. And I do mean like holy artifacts, Masonic writings, art, things of that sort. And the Rosenberg group was basically put in charge of acquiring these things for the Nazis. As you know,
Actually,
and
Jeff,
not to
Jeff, if you go to the next slide, you'll see
go ahead.
a little bit more information there.
Oh yeah, this
Yeah.
is crazy.
And it's
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting because Rosenberg, he was Hitler's chief philosopher and the architect of the Nazi ideology. Rosenberg received instructions from the Führer himself, and again, it was the acquisition of things that would be of interest to the Third Reich. What's really interesting is books like the ones I acquired wouldn't have survived. Most of the books that the Nazis and the Third Reich acquired were burned. So my question, and this is kind of what Scott and I have talked about, is why did these books survive? What was it about these books that the Germans were interested in?
Mhm.
And
And
why?
we know the ciphers in the books well predate World War One. So there were
Hmm.
ciphers in the books when they were confiscated by the Nazis. And yeah, so there
And
was definitely some interest there.
yeah, and it's kind of funny. I know that, and John and I have talked about this over, over the years. Is that we all saw the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Okay, so we all saw that movie, and you start to wonder. Okay, so the Hitler was looking for religious artifacts because they had power in his mind. So he wanted to get these religious artifacts. Was that just a movie? No, it wasn't. It was actually based on truth. And so they were trying to gather this stuff. So, as John, as you were just saying, why did these books survive? Why these books? Why did they make it through? And they were stamped. I mean, you
It was
can't,
stamped.
stamped with the Rosenbergs. That stamp inside, that's
I mean, yeah, you just can't get around that. At least we know one of the books was held by the Rosenberg Group, and
Mhm,
from the information I was provided, it could have been the whole group of 5.
mhm,
But what was of interest to the Nazis, that involved these books, and without sounding too Indiana Jones esque, We know the Fuhrer was after holy artifacts. We know the Fuhrer was interested in the occult and things of that sort. And if it was a Masonic replica, Arma Christi, Ark of the Covenant, this is the type of things that Hitler and the Rosenberg group were definitely interested in acquiring.
Mhm. Absolutely. Here's a question from Jake coming up here. You're talking about the ink that was in some of these books. I don't know that. I mean, is there any of it that can be dated at all?
Wow. I
Is
can't
that
be real
a?
Okay.
specific with that,
It
but
has been dated.
yeah, but a lot of it
You
I can't
can't
be real
maybe
specific about.
divulge. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. All right.
but the let's just say the ink dates correctly.
Okay. Good.
It's
Good.
not modern.
It's not modern.
Good.
No.
All right. So, in other words, there wasn't somebody in a back room a couple of years ago scribbling this stuff in there.
No,
So,
no,
all right.
no,
Good.
no, no.
Well, that's important. Yeah, very important. So, and these are the two books that you had, I guess, Flavius Josephus,
Hmm.
the Jewish historian, and the whole genuine works, and the Holy Week.
Holy Week. It's a
Wow.
Roman Catholic book about the week preceding or coming up on Easter. So both of these books were together in the original collection. And what's interesting is the Flavius Josephus book. It really goes into kind of what happened during the time of Christ. That's part of what the book goes into. Flavius Josephus was a Roman historian, and so you kind of get a lot of that early Christian documentation that's
Mhm.
outside of the biblical accounts. And I think that was the interest to Masons, of course, because it's outside the biblical account. It's another added source that verifies what happened.
Wow. Yep. Yeah, that's interesting. And you also found some ciphers in here too, as well, I guess.
Mhm.
This is the kind of stuff that goes beyond me, and it's up for people like Jake Roberts and you, and
Well,
the
This
people
one
that
was
are.
very. This one's very simple. It's literally
Was
just
it?
letters underlined on the page. So you just
Oh,
go in order. But it spells out a name, John Eason, which I was familiar with, knowing that he was an early Freemason in Nova Scotia through my previous research.
mhm.
And what's amazing in these books is it's not just one name. There's at least four names that
Really?
are all obscure people that all tie directly to Annapolis Royal, Nova Scotia, and the earliest Freemasonry and to Boston.
Mhm.
So to me, that's the biggest indication that these books are legitimate. Um, yes, there's pictures of the Holy Grail and there's different, menorah, that kind of thing. But to have those names
Mhm.
specifically to me really, you know, is compelling.
Wow, that is. Jen, and I had not ever heard of John Eason before.
No, he's
Uh,
not a common name, but he was definitely one of the early Masons in Nova Scotia, and he was a prominent family in Annapolis Royal
wow,
between the mid 1700s and late 1700s.
wow, amazing. And this was a little bit. You shared this with us before, a little bit about Freemasonry in Canada. Can you elaborate on this a little bit?
So yeah, so I mean Erasmus James Phillips, he was the first Grand Master of all of Canada.
Mhm.
The first lodge was in Annapolis Royal, and it was founded by the lodge in Boston, where our friend Jonathan Belcher was a member, and of course his dad is Captain Andrew Belcher, and the whole tie with Phipps. And
Mhm.
the same lodge in Nova Scotia, Charles Morris was a member, and he's the man that surveyed Mahone Bay and Oak Island, the first man to do so. And I believe he encoded multiple ciphers on the earliest map, which I've shown on the show before.
Yep. Yep.
The triple tau cipher that I called it.
Hmm.
Yes. Mhm.
And then we also have Isaac DeCoster, another big Masonic name that was a member of that same lodge in Annapolis Royal. He was later a member of the master of St. Andrew's Lodge in Boston, um, where some very prominent members um, yeah, people were members, and these guys were all master artificers, so they were master craftsmen, and um, you know. Uh, so yeah, I just find that very fascinating that these names all sort of come together, and we're literally the very earliest Freemasons. It's not just random Freemasons; they were the very first ones in
Yep.
Nova Scotia.
Wow.
So
And and I don't know if this is part of your presentation or not, but when I see the connections between Boston, New England area, and Nova Scotia, and then you hear about the whole the Benjamin Franklin had been up there, Thomas Jefferson, I think, had been up there. That was was it wrong to say that the Nova Scotia was supposed to be part of the original 13 colonies? I mean, people have talked about that a little bit, but what's your
yeah,
thoughts on that?
John can mention, but yeah, from what I've heard, for sure it was.
Well, Franklin had bought some land up in that direction,
Yeah,
speculative land dealings, and it was thought that Nova Scotia would have been the 14th colony.
The 14th. Okay, yeah.
So added to the original 13. That was kind of the gist of it at one point.
Mhm.
That Nova Scotia was going to be part of the United States, but it never manifested.
Right.
But it doesn't mean the founding fathers weren't investing in land up that direction.
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Yeah. So the connection between the two. So when you talk about Belcher and Phipps and all of that down there, I mean, it was all part of the going back and forth at that time, I guess, anyway, sorry.
yeah. Phipps
That just
himself was in
fascinates
Annapolis
me.
Royal.
It really does.
Yeah. So that's just a commemorative stone that's just outside the old original lodge building, the Sinclair Inn.
Ah, yes, the St. Clair Inn.
So that's beautiful Annapolis Royal right there
I've not been there yet, and that's going to be on our next trip. We
on
have to
your
go there,
list. Yeah.
Christina. We got to go to Annapolis Royal. I want to see this place.
Yeah.
Then
So
that's
I've
over on
been
the
there.
Bay of Fundy side, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've been there several times, and John and I were there twice last summer and loved it there. That's Fort Anne in the foreground,
Mhm.
which is a 300-year-old fort.
Mhm.
And I believe on the next slide you get into a bit of a closer view there. So the red arrow on the right is the original
Right here.
Masonic Lodge building. It's called the Sinclair Inn.
Mhm.
It's restored now, but the original building was pretty much intact. And the arrow on the left side is the current Masonic Lodge building, which John and I visited a few times as well. So they're pretty close together. Very
And
small town.
you're a Mason yourself, 32nd degree, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a Mason, and so yeah, I'm Scottish Rite and York Rite now as well,
Mhm.
and also Rosicrucian.
Hey, hey,
That's
hey,
me.
hey, Jeff, can we go back 2 slides, please?
Yes.
And Scott, I'm gonna weigh in, with you real
Yeah, yeah,
quick.
sure.
That's shaped like a star, correct? Like a 5-pointed star. It would seem to be.
Mm.
And
Oh,
because there's a lot of star forts out there, and I'm just kind of curious. Does that
Yeah,
look
yeah.
like a?
I'm not sure if it's a hexagon.
Yeah, it does have that kind of star fort formation. I know whether it be the Star of David and or the Star of Solomon, it seems to have that formation there. And I'm just kind of curious, being that it is basically a Masonic city, Masonic colony, so to speak. I'm just picking up on that. That's just an interesting aside. So
Yeah, yeah.
that a lot of times these buildings and landscape and things were meant to be seen as above, so below, and it was actually incorporated into the landscape or the architecture or the surroundings. These symbols and icons. So it was just curious, Jeff. I just spotted that,
yeah.
and it just occurred to me like, hey, it's almost like the Masons are marking their territory, so to speak.
Yep. I saw that too, and I was kind of wondering about that, the shape of it, because
Yeah,
there's some other places. There's actually a
There
fort
are,
that
yeah.
was built, yeah, here in the Pittsburgh area that had points like that too. So
kind of
that
curious.
was something that they did. Yeah.
Yep.
The
And
St.
that's
Clair
come back.
Inn.
Yep, Sinclair Inn. That's a beautiful. Right now, it's a museum, but basically they preserved all the original architecture and building materials, and it shows how it started out as sort of a building in the front, and then it got added onto over the years. So
Hmm.
the original early lodge building is actually in the front and the second floor, and we'll see that as we go forward inside. So basically, I found this fascinating as well. So uh, the room that they now know for sure was the original Masonic Lodge room was covered in wallpaper, and nobody really thought much of it. And for 150 years, I think there was layers of wallpaper, and then one day in the 60s there was this water damage, and the wallpaper started to peel, and they realized that there was actually this mural painted underneath on the wall, and it took about 50 years before they finally brought somebody in, a proper conservator, this woman, Anne Shafto. I think you'll see her on the next. There she is. So she spent quite a bit of time there, painstakingly uncovering the wallpaper and revealing this amazing mural that literally wraps around the room of this Masonic lodge.
Wow.
And the amazing thing is too, there's actually layers of paint. So there's other images underneath what you see in the foreground.
Really?
Yeah. So as you can see there, it looks sort of like a pastoral scene. There's like a lake with a hill and a tree in the forefront, a couple of boats. But as John and I discovered, there was actually quite a bit of Masonic imagery as well.
I was going to say, it can't be just somebody say, oh, let's just make a lake, a pretty lake or something on the wall. Wow. And this is like on every wall in there of the original.
It wraps around, all four walls. There's something.
Wow. That's amazing.
And Jeff, it's just laced with Masonic imagery. The whole place is laced with symbols, icons. It's just painted, into the landscape. And it's like anything else. And we've discussed that, Jeff, you and I before, and Scott and I have. Like the Xena map. You have to know what you're looking at. A series of codes, a painting. It doesn't matter. You have to know what you're looking at. If you're not versed in the symbolism, it's just going to be a nice painting. But if you're versed with the symbolism and know what to look for, you can read these. It's like reading a book if you know what you're looking at. In masonry, a lot of it's memory work, a lot of it's knowing the symbols and icons and knowing what you're looking at. That way you can quickly decipher, because you have the eyes to read it, you have the eyes that know, and you've been enlightened, versus looking at something. And it's known that Masonic meaning and symbolism is in plain sight. So right here, it's in plain sight, and if you don't know what you're looking at, you can miss it.
Here's a good question too. Is the building currently open to visitors, to the public?
Yes,
it is.
And you can go inside and see these murals on the wall?
That's a good question. That part was closed off for a little bit.
Oh, okay.
I believe it's open in the summer. I know the museum's open. There's a guide that works there full time and takes people around, and they were very helpful to John and I. They were very excited to work with us, and it was really disappointing when it came to the point where we were about to go film. We were actually going to go and film inside the Sinclair Inn and have the camera crew all there, and but the what is it? The head of the museum had to go on another away from town kind of thing meeting, and just simply couldn't be there. So, and we were very tight for time with the crew, and it was like, oh, we have to do it today, and it's like so unfortunately people didn't get to see what would have been amazing footage inside the we just were left with photographs.
Right. Wow.
I mean, they may go back next year if we further this research, because there is a lot more that wasn't talked about.
A lot.
So in this image here, you can sort of see it's very rudimentary, like two circles, large circles at the top of a sort of a pole, and those are in all four corners of the room, indicating a ionic pillar, like a Masonic pillar. Wow. And those are underneath like I said, the foreground mountains that you can sort of see in the bottom, sort of bleeding through the paint. So it can be confusing when you're looking at it, because you're seeing different things that don't.
Okay, I got what you're saying. Yeah, it's on the painting behind the painting.
Exactly. Yeah. So it looks prominent up at the top, and not as much at the bottom.
Okay, I was wondering about that. It was in all four corners. Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing place. Oh, that must be the last slide on this one. Okay. All right. Let's go to the next one here.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see here.
The ceiling was painted like blue with stars, which is indicating like the celestial canopy, which is in many Masonic lodges.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's funny when I saw that. I said, Scott, look. And we looked up, and the whole ceiling, much of what was left was all blue. And I'm like, celestial canopy. And And Scott knew. Yeah, celestial canopy. You know, being a 32nd Mason, Scott knew immediately. I was like, yeah, celestial canopy.
Wow.
So the whole thing is really painted out in as a lodge would have been, you know, with the different iconology, symbolism, and the celestial canopy itself.
Wow.
So it's an amazing place.
It really is. I would love to go see it myself if it's open to the public and we get the opportunity to go there. This is stop number one right here for
Have
sure.
to see it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
amazing.
Wow. This is great. I mean, and so this lady that you talked about earlier that was in there, the curator, or she was in there working, and she had to
Oh,
get all that wallpaper off and go through all of this.
yeah, I don't remember how long exactly she was there, but if you look up online, you can find if you look up Painted Room, Sinclair Inn,
Mhm.
there's websites to talk about it.
Wow.
And it was
That's
a big deal with working with the university and very scientifically, removing the
right.
wallpaper
Without,
and
yeah, without
preserving it.
damaging the painting underneath. Yeah, that would
Yeah.
be so difficult, I suppose. Oh, what do we got here?
So that was shown on the show. So basically, my first thought was that that's a lighthouse, but we were quick to discover that if you look at it more closely, there's sort of a red fold in the middle of it,
Yeah, right here in the
um,
middle.
looking very much like a tent.
Mhm.
And we found out soon after that several people, Masons in Nova Scotia, and even a university professor, strongly believes it's meant to be a Crusader tent. And the actual guide in the Sinclair Inn is calling it a Templar tent. He told
Oh,
us.
really?
Yeah. So that's one of the images that they definitely believe is Masonic in nature. And maybe it was originally a lighthouse that they converted into sort of a crossover, but it's definitely believed to be a Crusader tent.
Yeah, it looks like a tent to me. I mean, you can see the flap, the door flap on
Yeah,
it.
the flap is obvious when you, yeah.
Yep.
Well, and what's interesting about the Templar tent, Jeff, or any sort of Crusader tent, it's a traveling tabernacle. You know, so typically tents like that would house something of holy origin or of holy significance.
Which we'll see
Those
coming up.
type of, yep, those the type of tents, of course, would have the pots of that would emanate the Shekinah, which is the Holy Spirit. And tents like that would invoke awe, wonder, the presence of God. And it would only be in these type of tents that you would have something housed, even if traveling, like the Ark of the Covenant or the menorah
Mhm.
or other holy artifacts. So it's kind of curious that now we have something that is very reminiscent of a Crusader or Templar traveling tabernacle. And what's it doing in a painting in Annapolis Royal?
Yeah, unless they were part of
Yes.
that
Indicating something.
history.
Unless this painting as much as decoration is portraying the historical significance of what happened in Nova Scotia in
Yeah,
my mind.
and the origins of their society, I was going to say, or their brotherhood today, or at that time, the origins of it, going back to the origins of it. Almost. Is that a stretch for me to say that?
Well, no, I don't think it's a stretch at all because you can look and Scott, you can speak on this probably better than I could. This is kind of woven into Masonic lore, Masonic morality plays, Masonic imagery, Masonic teachings. Masonic temples are decked out like Solomon's temple. So to say that that's a stretch, I don't think it is at all, Jeff. I think this is so embedded in Masonic symbolism that to say that these artifacts traveled, I absolutely think they did. And if you think about it, many of the Masonic lodges have replicas of these artifacts as part of their ritual system.
Mhm.
So to say it's a stretch, no. But if you have a replica, there has to be somewhere the original item, the real deal. And
Mm.
so the question is, if you have, replica artifacts like the Ark of the Covenant or the breastplate of Aaron or other the menorah or whatever religious artifact is being replicated in the Masonic Lodge, the question is, where's the real one? And it has to be somewhere, and who knows about it? And it's not every 32nd, 33rd degree Mason would know about it. You're talking like the select that they select. You're talking about the secret of secrets. And I
Mhm.
think if anyone knows about it, it's a very, very small circle. But you have to know what you're looking at. You have to know about the codes. You have to know about the ciphers. You know, and Scott, you can speak better on this, but it's handed down verbally. A lot of Masonic, ritualistic um, initiation ceremonies are memory work. None of it's out there. You have to know what you're looking at. Scott, can you speak a little more on that?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't mind going forward, Jeff, we have some stuff coming up that talks about this a little bit.
Okay.
So there's an example of a medieval tent that looks very similar to that image
It
on
sure
the
does.
wall.
Yep.
As I mentioned, like, everyone was saying they believe it could be a Crusader tent or a Templar tent.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually some red crosses even at the very top that are very faint that
Oh, I see them
give
right
that
here.
indication as well. Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Whoops. Yeah, right here.
And
Yep.
Jeff, what color?
Here.
What color are the two crosses at the top of the Sinclair tent?
The red.
And white.
Red and white, yes.
Like that,
Yeah,
yeah.
red on
Like a
white.
Templar. Yeah.
Yes, like a
Yeah,
Templar cloak.
correct.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
if you
not a
want to-
coincidence. That's not there. I don't believe in those kind of coincidences. No,
Wow.
not at
I
all.
mean, choice of color, Jeff. You know, color
Mhm.
symbolism, iconology. Choice of color means everything in this case. Red,
Absolutely.
red and white. I mean,
Yeah. You know, here's somebody that brought up a question real quick. I'm going to show this real quick. I know it steps back a little bit in your presentation, but wasn't there a U-boat discovered off the waters of Nova Scotia? What might they have been there for? Now we know that they were cruising the coastline of North America at some point. So is it possible that they were just there because of, or could they have been looking for something? I don't know. Interesting question.
no, it is coincidental that the Nazis had U-boats all up and down the East Coast. That would include Nova Scotia, of course. The question is, what were they just patrolling, or did the Führer have something more in mind, or the Rosenberg group have something more in mind or are they looking for something?
Yeah.
Again, it's speculative, but I can't rule it out.
No,
You
you
know,
can't.
you can't, especially with that stamp sitting in that book, and
Yes.
knowing the Nazis had at least one of the books, if not all five. You just can't rule that out. So if you're going down a rabbit hole like that, you have to go down that and really follow that line of logic. Could
Mhm.
they have been? Yes. Were they around on the East Coast? Yes. And we know that. The records show that.
Mhm. Yep. Wow.
So this next slide, Jeff, just shows actually it's an image specifically of the Jewish tabernacle, which was where the Ark of the Covenant and the menorah were housed
Right.
prior to the building of King Solomon's temple. And it looks very much again like this. I know there's different interpretations of the tabernacle. Some are very small, some are much larger. But I just thought it was very interesting, the comparison and the fact that we were led to Annapolis Royal by the books. The books have images of the Ark of the Covenant and the Holy Grail, and they led us to Masons' names leading to Annapolis Royal, and then here we have this potential Crusader tent on the east wall, literally facing Oak Island. Actually,
Yes.
if you go straight through the wall. So this image came from a 600-year-old Bible from Spain.
That's crazy. I mean, not crazy, unbelievable. It's very believable, but it's amazing that like you said, it led you there.
Yeah.
That's
What's crazy, Jeff, is in the Masonic system, the coordinate points are off a bit because the everything's northeast, south, west. But north is east. There's different things. The light always comes from the east. You always look to the east. And so I had a compass with me because that's what I do when I enter a Masonic temple. I like to see what's on each wall, and to pull out a compass, look like an old hand compass, and look and see that Crusader tent, the image what I think is a Crusader tent, was in the same direction as Oak Island. Was I was like, what are the chances?
Right in the east
You know,
corner, yeah, of the room.
right in the east. I mean, right in the corner, Jeff. Right in the east corner. Like this is tucked away in the east corner. And when I pointed the compass, it pointed right to that corner and then towards Oak Island. And I was like, hmm. Now, I'll say this: pointed in the direction of Oak Island. You know, we didn't actually sit down and do the exact coordinate on a map, but you know, it's interesting that you could hold this compass and see that there's a significance. It's almost like telling you, like, look this direction, go this direction, and I found that fascinating.
It is. It truly is. Wow.
So
So
that's
what is
another
this?
comparison that we noticed. So that's the top of the potential Crusader tent, and to us it looks very much like the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem,
Oh,
almost
right.
exactly the same shape.
Wow.
And if you go to the next slide, you'll see.
Oh,
So that's an image in John's book with the J for Jerusalem. We're pretty sure that's the Dome of the Rock where the sea is, and in the left side that's the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, again shown in the book. And there's a Holy Grail symbol.
Yep.
So again, you've got tie-ins between the book and Annapolis Royal, the very first lodge.
You know, it makes me wonder about the things that were drawn in these books. And that's the part that really would it have, and I'm going to ask this question, and you may or may not have any answers or ideas on this, but it's a question that pops into my brain. Would it have been the German person who had this book that was drawing these things in here, or would it have been done prior to their possession of this book?
You want to take that, John?
I was going to say the analysis shows that they went in prior to the Second War.
Ah, okay.
You know,
Wow.
these aren't to my knowledge, they're not modern.
So
Wow.
the books were owned by a Jewish treasure hunter. We know that.
Oh, okay. Now that I didn't know. Okay. All right.
But we
Wow.
can't give any specifics. But
Yeah,
this
obviously.
person was very much into tracking down history and treasure.
So that probably was the person who did these sketches. Okay. All right. Wow.
Or he
Well, no.
found them, and
Or
Yeah.
they
found
might
them.
even
Yep.
they might predate him as well.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think the analysis, Jeff, was the ink predated this person
Wow.
by a lot.
Wow.
You know.
Oh my gosh.
So,
Oh my gosh. Wow.
I mean, if you
Okay.
think of the names in the book, you would think that someone knew these people, and this was in the 1700s.
Yeah.
And you'll see another connection coming up in the presentation that may be a tie-in as well.
Wow. Okay. Oh, there's the Holy Sepulchre. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's amazing. Yeah, to me, that's so the holiest site in Christianity, and it basically encompasses the site of Jesus' crucifixion as well as the resurrection, all inside that building.
I would love to go there someday. Have you ever been there?
I haven't. I'd love to go as well.
A little, yeah. My goodness, yeah. That'd be a great place. I'd love to go and see that. Okay, what do we have here?
And that's just another example of that same tent style. It's used quite a bit in Freemasonry. Usually in terms of the high priest or King Solomon. And so these are Royal Arch related. If you go to the next slide, there's a close-up of the one on the right.
Okay. Oh, okay. Because I was looking at some of the things in here, the all-seeing eye, and then of course the Ark of the Covenant right there, and that
And
would
if you
be
go to
the
the
eye
next
of
slide, that's
God.
what I was saying.
Yeah.
Goes
I
close
also
on that.
saw Saint John down here at the bottom on the floor.
Yep, it's all very much Saint John, John the Baptist, John the Evangelist.
That's who the
But
Templar.
that's a close-up showing the Ark of the Covenant, the all-seeing eye.
Yeah, zoom in on St. John, Jeff, on the floor.
I
Because
can't zoom in on these,
Okay,
unfortunately. Yeah.
What's interesting is the two Johns are high holy days, if you want to call them high holy days, for Masons. So it's kind of interesting. I think it was St. John the Baptist Day that Prince Edward Island was founded, and they waited. From my research, they waited off the coast for 3 days to make sure that they could, discover Prince Edward Island on St. John the Baptist Day. So it's just different things like
It
that.
was called St. John's Island at one time, right?
Yes.
Prince Edward Island was called St. John's Island at one time. I did not know that.
Yes.
Wow.
So
as I mentioned in my book, Oak Island was warranted on for the very first time in 1753 by a Freemason to Gifford and Smith on December 27th, the feast day of St. John the Evangelist, one of the most important Masonic days of the year.
Yep.
Yes.
So why would he be warranting land on, between Christmas and New Year's? On the most important Masonic day of the year. So to me, that almost shows that Oak Island is a Masonic project of some kind.
Yes.
So
I also
Scott,
saw it says Pennsylvania on there. I just saw that real quick as a
Oh, that's just a random
okay. All right.
somebody's certificate, but yeah, just to
Oh,
show the
nothing,
tent.
nothing about Pennsylvania that important. Okay. All right.
well, Jeff, we can go back. Pennsylvania was known as the Keystone State, right?
Mhm.
And the
Yeah.
Keystone is what's exactly in the middle of the Royal Arch of Enoch.
Yeah.
Benjamin Franklin State. Yeah.
Holding it
Yeah,
all
the Ben
together.
Franklin State. So the Keystone was the middle state. It was the 13th state, 6 on each side.
Mhm.
So the PA does have a Masonic significance for sure.
Mhm.
That's where it got the name Keystone State. It was
Yeah.
Masonic given.
Yeah. Yep. I learned that some years ago, but yes, and I always wondered what that meant. The Keystone State. What's that all about? Yeah.
And at the top of that arch, what do you see? A keystone.
A keystone right there. Yep.
Yep.
That's amazing. And I see that little symbol right there underneath it too. I wish I could zoom in on this, but on the bottom of the keystone is that little flower looking plant or whatever that you see that the Laginas have seen in many places.
Mm-hmm.
Corian and all them talked about that as well. They've seen that little symbol around everywhere. Do you have I wish I could zoom in on this so people could see it, but if you remember the wall, it was the one thing that Alex Lagina was talking about, the fact that he said it looked like that button, but it didn't look like that button at all. But this carving in the wall, yeah, this carving in the wall was seen in a lot of different places.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's obviously very significant. Wow. And obviously this is the high priestess in the tabernacle.
Yep. And yeah, so we just wanted to show that as well. And as you guys know, I talked about the rhodolite garnet that was found on the island. Matches very closely to old Masonic high priest breastplates. And and the fact that two people intimately connected to Oak Island were Royal Arch Masonic high priests. But yeah, there's some interesting connections there as well.
So yeah,
with that tradition of the high priest and the Royal Arch and Oak Island, I believe.
and if he had that breastplate with him, I mean, that to lose one of those, if it was truly from the breastplate, to lose that would have been terrible to I think to have lost something like that.
Yeah.
Oh.
John, did you want to?
Oh yeah, I can talk about this. A lot of this is very Poussin like. As you go into the iconology, the way this is done, it imitated something that possibly Nicholas Poussin would have done. Whether that was purposeful or just coincidental is unknown. But anyone that sees that says it's very Poussin like.
Yeah, the actual official
description.
Heritage Society mentions Poussin like the style. And of course, everyone knows Poussin's famous for the Shepherds of Arcadia, which could tie into Nova Scotia. It could be, there's been lots of talk about that from different researchers. And I thought it was very interesting that one of the an anagram of Et in Arcadia, Et in Arcadia Ego, one of the anagrams is Et in Arcadia Ago, which means I act on behalf of the Ark of God.
Yeah.
So another potential, there's lots of stuff around the Ark. I don't know if it's actually on Oak Island, but there's a lot of clues that point that way.
Yeah. And in Masonry, there are 3 arcs, that are focused on, and one of those is the Ark of the Covenant. So it's just interesting. The Ark is a fundamental teaching in Freemasonry.
Here's that one there with the star. That would be the cross, the Malta Cross, the Maltese cross.
It's one of them. There's a couple in the book. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. and the
So we
menorah.
talked a little bit about how, yeah, the Hospitallers became the Knights of Malta, and that cross was in the book, and that helped them kind of get into the whole, we're going to go to Malta and then investigate with Corian. So
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And what's interesting, I'm not sure if that's the next slide, but the Malta Cross was also found on a page that mentions the Temple of Jerusalem,
yeah, right there.
the Symbolic Temple, which I think is the next slide.
Yeah,
Right
there
there.
it is. The
Yep.
temple built by Herod. Yep.
Mm-hmm. It's all the significant temples. And where was the Ark of the Covenant housed?
In Jerusalem. Yeah.
About Jerusalem, and it was the Symbolic Temple. So it's it's on the correct page. If you're talking about the Ark of the Covenant and where it was housed. Now, the question is, and Scott and I have talked about this, was it intentionally placed on that page? And Scott, we both feel yes, it was intentionally placed.
Oh,
Correct?
absolutely. I would say yes. Absolutely was
Yeah.
intentional. It wasn't just a random page that somebody figured to draw that star on there and write Malta on it. No.
No.
And it's interesting they would even mention Malta. Like, why not just stick with the Templars? So maybe something was definitely known that there was a connection there. So
right. And Corian laid that out pretty well last night, how it all moved across,
the family, yeah.
Yeah, the family, exactly. And you have some of that in here as well.
Yes.
Yep.
So I actually went to this museum, I think 20 years ago with my family, Fort Point Museum, which is La Have's, Nova Scotia. And they have this Isaac de Razilly display sort of set up with that Knights of Malta, I guess, habit. And yeah, it's really cool. It's really interesting that they have that commemorating him being there.
Wow. Another place that we've got to go.
Yeah.
Go there.
Alexander,
is not that far away from Nova Scotia or from Oak Island.
It's very close.
Alexander Navari took me there, and it was really fascinating. The whole place is just linked to the Templars. I mean, look at the window, Jeff. Look at the choice of color. 3 fleur-de-lis, right? And then the choice of red and white again.
Yep.
Inverted a bit from the Templar colors, but still the Templar colors. And so why is that the coat of arms? Why were those things chosen? Champlain visited here several times and stayed rather large swaths of time. So what was he there for? A lot of things just are coincidental, but curiously coincidental. Like it's not a coincidence at all.
Yeah, I don't really believe in those coincidences. I really don't.
No,
it's all very purposeful.
But like Rick says, until you hold that one thing or know that one thing, it's happy coincidence.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All right. So this is that part I was talking about where, that family line. This is amazing to me.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Like, I didn't even realize Corian was researching this, but we talked about this in our presentation a little bit. Catherine Davilier came from, the same family as Philippe Davilier, who was the 43rd Grand Master of the Hospitallers, who became the Knights of Rhodes, who became the Knights of Malta. And I actually found this in the Masonic Library in Nova Scotia many years ago. There's a listing of all the Grand Master names in a book from 1795, the exact year they found the money pit. So yeah, they're definitely Isaac de Razilly came from a very prominent family of not just members, but actually Grand Masters of the order. So I would love to find a tie-in with him and maybe Belcher somehow. I still think the Belcher line, that I know that ties directly to Oak Island, because Belcher was a lodge member with Jonathan Prescott, who owned 2 lots on Oak Island. Like, there's a very direct connection to Oak Island, not a possible, it's a direct connection. So I just wonder if there's anything with that as well here that might tie in.
I think there is. I think he's involved in this somehow or another, in some way or another. He had to be.
I mean, the Belcher family, and with Morris and with all these guys that that worked very closely around the island, physically on the island.
Appointed governor of New France, which was Acadia.
And Cardinal Richelieu, he's very much an intriguing character as well. That he's been involved in a lot of
church corruption. That'd be a nice way of putting it. Church corruption, perhaps.
possibly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Richelieu
there's
was
a
a character.
fortification at La Have. There's a fortification there.
There was. Now it's just yeah. There's a museum and a monument,
Ah, okay.
but that's where the original fort was located.
What you know off just a little sideline here because he John had mentioned Alessandra Nadavari and the property that they own in in New Ross in that I've been there and looked down that well
Hmm.
Me too.
and seen the pile of stone,
Hmm.
huge going on forever pile of stone. um I believe personally that there was some sort of a structure there at one time. Have you been there, Scott? Have you been up to that property and see? Yeah. Okay. I
Yeah,
figured you
yeah, I
probably
have.
have.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I when I was there, it was pouring rain, so
Oh.
we were kind of telling ghost stories and things. But I would have loved to investigate more on the property when I was there. But maybe next time I'm in the
Yeah.
area.
Yeah. I was there with Christine and I and of course Carmen Legg
Mm.
and Carmen and I with Alessandra, and we got to look around there quite a bit. And that pile of stones, there was something there. There was definitely something built there at one time. It's and why the well? I mean, if there's a well, there was probably a fortification or I don't want to say fortification. There was a structure there as well at one time, and the well
Yeah.
still exists. But okay, anyway, I have a little sideline there.
Yeah.
There's so much fascination about Nova Scotia and that part around Nova Scotia. It just blows my mind. Okay, so now with John Easton again.
I think this is sort of a summary we were doing. So yeah, as I mentioned, we started with John Eason,
Mhm.
encoded in the books, which led us to Annapolis Royal and the mysterious painted mural, which was hidden for 175 years. No one knew it was there. As we found out, John Eason's great grandson, Thomas Eason Ritchie, was also a member of Annapolis Royal Lodge, but about 70 years later, from 1818 onwards. Um, and that time that he was a Mason matches very well with the dating of the painting or one of the main paintings in the Sinclair Inn.
Okay.
So some of it was from the 1700s, but there was later paintings from the early 1800s, 1840s. And again, matching partially with the coding in the books that John has.
Mhm. Ah, Gretchen agrees with me. Thank you, Gretchen. Obviously, yeah.
Well, yeah, New
It's
Ross.
yep, yeah. The New Ross Castle.
I read
There
that
you go.
Joan Hopes, yeah, years ago.
Yep.
So this is the a medal
Mhm.
that my friend John acquired,
Ah,
and this is actually the medal that belonged to Thomas Eason's great grandson.
oh wow.
And I believe, John, do you have it with you or
Oh yes,
no?
Oh wow,
There you
there
go.
it
Yeah.
is.
there it is. And
So we
So
brought that with us. We passed it around the war room table, and everyone was interested to see the.
wow.
there it is.
And that's pure silver, right, John?
Yeah, it's what's interesting about this is it's .9 silver, right? And it's considered colonial silver.
Oh wow.
Anywhere else that they found colonial silver, Jeff, that you're aware of?
Not coming to mind at the moment.
Yeah, there had, I think it was on the show a couple of years ago. I think it was last year actually. That Larry found that little silver tip, right?
Oh, that's right. Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
Yes.
I believe that was the same type of silver.
That
Uh,
was silver off the scabbard of a sword, or not a. I won't say it's like a fencing sword, or what do they call that? A rapier.
right
Rapier,
here.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so you see, it's clear on here, but it is Thomas
Annapolis Royal
Easton
Lodge.
Ritchie's Lodge 25 Masonic medallion,
Wow.
and that's old. Scott, what's the time frame on this? When did you first become a member of the lodge? 1812,
Yeah, I thought it was 1818 around there.
1818. Okay,
Mhm.
so this is
Oh,
old,
yeah,
Jeff.
yeah.
And
Wow.
it's rather expensive. It was expensive to acquire, but it's part of the lineage of the books as far as I'm concerned. It
It
is.
goes
It's
with the
it's a
books, yeah.
nice
It
piece.
goes.
It's solid silver. I
It's
mean,
part of the history.
it's
Wow.
fantastic. So it is part of the history of the books as far as I'm concerned. And you
Yeah.
almost can't separate now from the books from that metal. So it's an amazing piece.
Yeah. So there's the relationship. They showed part of this on the show, I believe. Thomas Eason Ritchie, and I think there's another slide coming up. So two of his great grandfathers were not only John Eason, but also John Ritchie, who you'll see is also interesting. I think it's on the next slide. So John Eason and John Ritchie were well known to each other. We found lots of documents in the archives, showing that that they were close associates. And I think on the next slide. Yes, so for at least 2 years, 1783 and 84, so that's well before the Money Pit discovery, John Ritchie was a member of the Nova Scotia House of Assembly with Caspar Wollenhut, the owner of Lot 18 on Oak Island.
Oh, wow.
I found that quite interesting. And also, they were part of a small committee, John Ritchie, Caspar Wollenhut, along with John George Pike, who was the Grand Master of Nova Scotia at that time. So it may mean nothing, but it's a very interesting combination of people coming together there.
Yeah, very interesting
On a
combination.
small committee.
Yep.
And then that's just another breakdown of the genealogy. So you've got, again, Thomas Ritchie at the bottom was a member of Annapolis Royal Lodge. His time frame matches the dating of the ink in the books and the mural. John Eason, of course, is encoded in the books.
Yep.
He was a founding member of Annapolis Royal, and he was a lodge brother of Charles Morris, the first man to survey Oak Island. And on the other side, you've got John Ritchie, who was on the House of Assembly. Not a lot of members, but surely they knew each other pretty well. And literally another direct connection to potentially Oak Island there.
Wow.
And then just furthering that, so John C. Ritchie is a member of the same family, and John C. Ritchie was a lieutenant in the Nova Scotia Regiment with a man named George Henry Monk. And as you'll see on the next slide, Monk is very interesting because he relates to Christopher Monk, the man who funded Sir William Phipps's attempts at the Concepcion.
Ah, that's right. Wow, I'd forgotten that. Wow.
So George Henry Monk was actually a member of St. John's Lodge in Boston with Jonathan Belcher, Jonathan Prescott. Then they moved to Nova Scotia. He became the assistant surveyor working with Charles Morris. Like, it's almost too coincidental for all these things to be coming together. And then the father, George Henry Monk, was a direct descendant of George Monk, the first Duke of Albemarle. As I said, his nephew, Christopher Monk, was the man who financed Phipps and became very rich afterwards, after the initial discovery.
Yeah. Became very rich. I wonder how that all came about.
John, you want to take that one?
Yeah, we went back to the map that was provided to me. With the FLX, Fiat Lux, Let There Be Light, and 157's Fra Rosie Cross. It has a Masonic sun and different images. That one appears to be an image of Oak Island. What's real interesting about this, and Jeff, this, is that what I like is that Henry and Tom did an analysis on this, I think last year. And it was a fascinating analysis of kind of the symbolism in it. It's definitely Masonically based. There's no doubt about it. But again, it's the type of thing where you have to know what you're looking at. There's more to this than you see on the surface. And if you understand the clues, and again, you can go back to things that Jake Roberts has done, with coding, and William Russell and Gretchen and other people, where they really understand the tradition, and where it dates back, and the multi-generational tradition at that. Templar, Masonic, Knights of Malta. It's kind of all one tradition, where these fraternities are really relatives of one another.
Yep.
And you see this. It's fascinating that you see something that, guess what? When Scott and I saw that, I know it's on the next slide. We were kind of astonished that the vault-like feature looks like it's featured on this map.
Yep.
And there it is. And,
So
and Scott,
when we were there the first time, Rick said, "I have something to show you guys," this was just discovered recently, and he took us over to it, and yeah, right away when we first saw it, we were kind of walking up to it, and it kind of resembled a keystone shape.
Keystone.
And of course, when you
Ah,
get closer, you can see it is square from the top. But
right, right.
but very soon after, we were back, at where we were staying, and looking at the map, and it just dawned on us, like, holy crap, like this, like John said
It's
first.
pointing right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, stop, this looks
Look at this.
exactly like what we just saw on the island. And
Yep.
then I said, and look exactly where it's pointing to, the north end of the swamp. It's
A
like
swamp.
it couldn't be more, I mean,
You know,
it may be a coincidence, but it's very a very
Yeah.
strong.
well, maybe a coincidence, but it's a perfect fit, Jeff. I mean, again, everything points to Oak Island, with these books. Again, it's that one thing. As Rick said, it's that one thing. What is the one thing where you can hold something in your hand and say it was this?
Yeah.
But I think we have a stronger understanding between, all the researchers this past year and, and the research Scott and I have done, Corian has done, Chris has done, and others. We have a stronger sense of, and Judy Ruderbush, let me tell you, Judy's fantastic. She's a fantastic researcher.
Mhm.
With her efforts and researching the books, I think we have a better understanding of the who.
Yeah, I think so too. I
It's the
do.
who. You go who, what, where, when, how, and why, but we now have a better understanding of the who.
Yep.
And that's just one more signpost that we've taken down. We now know, you know, and then the question is the motivation.
Right.
What do all these groups have in common? And again, back to kind of what Jake and I talk about, and Gretchen and I talk about, and William Russell, and of course, Scott and I talk about, and it's the repeatability.
Mhm.
Chris Morford's another researcher that he sees repeatability. His book, him and Corian's book, The Jerusalem Files, is a fantastic book, looking at the same type of codes and repeatability.
Yep.
And it seems like all these researchers, and Rick talks about it so eloquently, the collaboration, all these researchers are pointing independently, and there are different modalities to the same place. So
Mhm.
what is it about Oak Island that holds something significant or has something significant to do with it? And
Yep.
this was just another, the book is just a clue,
Yeah.
but it seems to be, as Rick said, becoming a more significant clue.
Yep. One of these days, I'm going to figure out how to get all of you researchers together in one room for like a day, and
Rick wanted that.
Yeah.
Rick tried to do that.
you
That
guys
still
can
might
all
happen,
have this
hopefully.
figured out.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I went back to this picture real quick because one of the things that I noticed when I first saw this, I was looking at it. Again, you talked about Henry DeWitt and Tom Burns
Yes.
working together and finding these three spots right here that kind of sort of
Match up.
match up with sinkholes that are just on the mainland off of Oak Island. There are three sinkholes there, and you see these three spots. I don't know if that's, how
Wow.
that's connected, but then this right here, and it shows this little boat and this like here, which I'm calling, I was saying, well, that kind of looks like the Gold River going
Mhm.
up to New Ross. And what is that? Boy, that looks like a bit of a castle or something in New Ross. Could that be the, you know, I, I, you
Well,
It does
what's
go well
really
for sure.
what's really curious, and it just occurred to me, like, how they say, the New World, New Francais, New Jerusalem, right?
Mhm.
Could the Nova Scotia area be New Jerusalem? And that would go along with the 157 of the Fra Rosie Cross.
Right.
Bacon writes extensively about New Jerusalem, as kind of a spiritual mecca, and an achievement of ascension in masonry. So, could that be a reference to both a literal as well as a metaphoric reference?
It could have
And
meant
if
to
that's
be.
New Ross,
Mhm.
and Henry Sinclair is sitting up there, with teachings, you
Yeah.
know, I'm just saying, Jeff, it's just highly coincidental.
Yeah. And then it shows down here the ship and it's pointing to the swamp. And
Hmm.
we've all saw the pictures, what looked like there might have been a ship in the swamp. I've come to not really believe that there is a ship in the swamp anymore, but if it was, it's long gone by now. But that's another thing. You got a ship here and it's pointing to the swamp. So what does that mean? But again, now correct me if I'm wrong, but this was not it. This was a picture that you had of a map and drawing in a book, but you didn't actually have this book, correct?
It was provided to me by the private collector. Yes.
Okay, all right, that's what I thought, because I know this was, I think this was the one that Rick Lagina had gone out and done his little video where he was asking people, he wanted to get a hold of this book, right? Is that okay? Thank you.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, too many parallels. This is this when I saw this too, like you, John. Of course, it was several months later when we finally saw it, but I was
Mhm.
like, "Oh my gosh, it is! It looks like it's pointing right to that vault." Which I think, and again, going with my personal opinion, that Anthony Graves found it, and he may have looted it. If it had anything in it, he got it, and and then I think he was using it for a while. Is that the case? We don't know. We have no idea
No, I have no idea.
knowing for sure, but
Yeah.
sure seems like it was right on his property and very close to his house.
Mm.
So anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead with this one.
Oh, Scott, do you want to take this one?
That was one you put in, I think, actually. That
Well,
The
me
parallel
and Scott
lines.
can talk about it. But yeah, it's a feature, like it looks like it's slightly offshore, Jeff. And
Mhm.
so my thought pattern was, look at those two parallel lines going down to like
Yeah.
an open circle.
Yeah, you can
And
see them here, and then you've
yeah,
highlighted them here. So there they are there.
and it could be two X's there, but it looks like two parallel lines, and then it looks like it's heading into whatever that is. Could be a tunnel, could be a flood system, it could, whatever that is. It's two parallel lines are heading down to an open circle, which could denote entrance.
Mm, yep.
Yeah. Something
You know,
offshore. Right?
or
Could be a
something
boy pointing
offshore.
to the swamp and
So
actually pointing to the
the
road.
question is, is it something offshore? And you, Jeff, you and I have talked about this. Scott, you and I have talked about this too, about the tides and how deep it was, the depth of the water, and how it's eroded or coming in and out over time. I believe, Jeff, it was much lower um, hundreds of years ago. Was it not? The tides weren't as
Well,
high as it was.
yeah, there's a lot of people that go back and forth on
Yeah.
that, talking about, and then you'd be talking about, climate change and stuff, and a lot of
Okay.
people, how that, and we're not going to get into that discussion here.
No.
But some people show that the water levels have risen about a foot a century,
Yeah, that's
um,
about right.
something like that over the years. So the water, if that is the case, then the water would have been much lower at the time that many things on the island are dated
Right.
back to that time frame. I was just noticing too that Jenny commented here, could be a boat pointing to the swamp is actually pointing to the road, and I wonder if the
Oh,
boat thing was a means to access something to turn off the drains
mm,
into something.
that's
Or a
interesting.
wharf. Jake says, or a wharf. So a lot of interesting comments going on here with the folks that are watching here. I'm sorry, go ahead. I had to want to point that out.
Yeah.
But those two parallel lines were definitely drawn on there for a purpose, and I'm glad that you've highlighted them here in the green. So that's interesting.
And that's what John mentioned earlier. FLX could stand for Fiat Lux, which is a Latin Masonic term, let there be light. Well, of
Right.
course, in the Bible. And 157, as our friend Jake knows, it's a numerical value of Fra Rosie Cross, which is one of, I think, Francis Bacon's ciphers for his name.
Yeah. Why would there be
So
a Sir Francis Bacon cipher in all of this?
Mhm.
the man who may have founded Freemasonry and Rosicrucian, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So that's a lineage to me. That's kind of it's telling you the origin of the story, Jeff, in my mind.
It could be.
Even
Yep.
though because the books aren't 600 years old, they're much more recent. But the iconology, in this case, the symbolism of 157 is old.
Yeah.
It goes back to the time of Francis Bacon. So, is that 157 telling us a bit about the origin of the story?
Yeah.
And it's a marker. It's telling you something. It's telling you that this map could very well be related to Bacon and Company.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
absolutely. And that's what Z Zanto and Jake are talking about here, saying that it's Bacon was involved. I totally believe he was involved in
well,
this.
and the question really is, Jeff, does Bacon inherit, or does Bacon, mark his territory on Oak Island, or is it both?
Could be
Not
both.
mutually exclusive. Does he inherit and then enhance? Does he inherit and he find? Does he inherit and leaves alone? Bacon definitely knows, in my mind. The Fra Rosie Cross is definitely involved in New Francais. Was Bacon on the island? I don't know.
Yeah.
Perhaps. But the organization definitely knew about it. In my
Oh,
mind.
absolutely.
It's a multi-generational tradition. And not everyone in that tradition knew, but the elite, the chosen, definitely knew. And I think everyone else was kind of along for the ride.
One of the things I find interesting about Bacon highlighted the triple tau in his writing.
Yep.
And that's big in Freemasonry.
Yep.
And as I mentioned in my book as well, like triple tau in Masonry literally means the key to the treasure, and it also means a place where a sacred thing is concealed. Like it's perfect meaning for Oak Island, right? It's and then I believe there was a triple tau cipher on the Charles Morris map pointing directly to Oak Island.
And if Jake could type in what he means by happenstance of inheritance, I would love to hear his thoughts on that. Because he's kind of left that comment, hanging out there.
Hanging out there on the thread. Yeah.
But it's there is something to it. Absolutely. And it's something that can't be dismissed. The Knights of Malta inherit this, for God's sake. This is multi-generational. It's bigger than any one of us, and it's bigger than any one researcher.
Yep.
We all have our niches, and this is why Rick's drive is for collaboration, because we each carry a piece of the puzzle.
One last thing. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. And as Corey and them pointed out, with that family bloodline, that information was passed down all the way from Jerusalem back in the 1100s or that time frame, all the way through to the 1800s or the 1700s. So they all knew about this. When you get to the multi-generational use, I think it was visited many times over that course of time from the 1100s to the 1700s or 1800s. I think it was visited many times by multi-generations. The one thing too about this map, and a lot of people have pointed it out, oh, that can't be, look at it, the island's got lots on it. Well, yes, that means it was definitely drawn after the island was divided up into lots, correct?
1765, roughly.
1765, exactly. So that means that this drawing had to be there about that time, which you guys
have. And that matches perfectly with the guys in Annapolis Royal. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So they would have, that fits perfectly into, your presentation here. So, very interesting.
So that's after our war room, a rare picture of Rick with his glasses off. And I think Jack's looking at John's medal in that picture.
Yeah, yep. And that's
so it was nice. It was nice to have Fiona and Judy with us in the war room. And
yep. And look at that bottle of Dr. Pepper sitting there.
It's funny. I've never in my life drank Dr. Pepper. And while I was in the war room, Rick actually came in and offered me one, and it was my first time drinking one, and it was from Rick Lagina, so it was kind of cool, and I liked it. It was actually a good.
I don't. That's one thing. And I'm sorry for Rick, but I do not like Dr. Pepper.
Oh, you don't?
No, what? I've never acquired a taste for Dr. Pepper. So. Yeah, I have a bottle. I have one of those old bottles back here on my shelf, but I do not like it. I didn't drink the stuff, but. Somebody got me Dr. Pepper Peeps and jelly beans at points over the last few years. And it's like, I tried them. No, still can't go there. So looks like you have the books sitting there on the table as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting. And what's that over there? It looks like a breastplate.
That's a good eye, Jack.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll move on from that. Maybe I'm not supposed to point that out, but I saw that sitting there. It looks like you guys are enjoying the libation there at the Mug and Anchor.
Mug and Anchor, that was right after our war room that day, after a long couple of days of preparation.
So what's your favorite Canadian beer? Nova Scotian beer?
For me, Keith's.
Ah,
So Alexander Keith was the Grand Master Freemason of Nova Scotia. So
that makes it special.
yeah, but I like the taste myself. I'm not a big beer connoisseur, but I like that
I'm
one.
not either, but yeah. Emma and Fiona. Yep, there they are.
Yep.
And Laird,
So
the whole
happened to
archaeology,
be
well,
that
part of the archaeology team. Yep.
Yeah.
the archaeologists were all there that night, so that was great to chat with them. And
She's a lot
yeah,
taller than I thought she was. Oh,
Emma's tall.
Emma. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. I've not met her in person yet, but I've met Laird, of course, but wow, she's pretty
I think
tall.
Emma's at least 5'10". And there's our friends Kat and Renee and Linda.
Yeah.
Three ladies that I got to meet. Yes, I know they've
They're a fun group.
I know them well. Yep, and they're going to be there in September. I don't know about Renee, but I know Kat and Linda. I think will be there in September as well. So with
You can see
Scott.
how tall Scott Barlow is. I think he's like
Oh yeah, I've met Scott.
6'3" or
I
something.
got the first time I got to meet Scott was actually in Florida, of all places.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago. He was down in Florida with his family, and I had the opportunity to meet him. And I like that shirt that they're wearing. The Salty Dog. They got their Salty Dog shirts
Oh
on.
yeah, Tony's.
Yeah, Cat makes some good cookies too, by the way. So here
I
we
just
go.
doing a couple of So while I was there the two times, it was a real privilege to attend the Masonic lodges.
Mhm.
So Clarke Lodge, no relation to me, same spelling as my last name with the E. So that's the continuation of the original Chester Lodge. So Chester Lodge was very close to Oak Island, and some of the original members of that lodge in 1784 were Oak Island lot owners. So it was amazing to actually attend that lodge when I was there.
Wow.
And the second time we were there, a few weeks later, I was able to attend Annapolis Royal Lodge,
Wow, very
which
nice.
was very cool. And they actually presented me with a certificate,
Oh,
basically for my work in promoting masonry in Nova Scotia and that kind of thing. And
that's awesome.
so that was really cool. Yeah, and I'm friends with all these guys now too as well. They're all very interested. And so in the picture on the right, the two gentlemen on either side of me actually came to the Sinclair Inn with us, and they
Oh
were
wow.
there when we were doing our original. They were very interested in all that.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, my father was Freemason as well, and when he died, they came and in the regalia and was at his
yeah,
ceremony there at the graveyard. So that was really
yeah.
really nice.
They have a
I
really
always
nice
Yep,
ceremony.
yep. Yeah, very interesting. There's a motley
Mhm.
crew if I ever saw one.
Yeah, some more Freemasons.
Yep.
So yeah,
Interesting. So many
everyone knows
Freemasons.
Charles is a Mason, but not everyone knows Tony is. And
Mhm.
Jack became a Mason after talking with me years ago. Was quite interested in the whole, the mystery behind it, and so Jack's a Mason now as well.
Hmm.
Wow.
And
Yep.
we've had lots of discussions, Jack, myself, and John, about masonry and esoteric topics in general.
Yep. It's funny how so many Freemasons are involved in the Oak Island mystery. I'll leave it at that. And that's interesting. And
I mean,
some of us have sat back who are not Masons and said, are they trying to help find it or are they trying to keep them from finding
yeah, that's
it?
the running joke on Charles. Yeah, he's there to keep them from finding it.
Yes, right. Oh, look over there. Yeah, over there.
Yeah.
That's where it's at. Yeah. So I'm sorry. I don't know.
And I think
Oh,
many
make a
people
wish.
have seen that picture. That was at the sort of the Make a Wish did a fundraiser with Fiona, and we were at the Oak Island Treasure Shop. Big group of us. So there's John on the very far right, and myself next to Emma.
Hmm.
But got the
Wow.
whole group there: Billy and Rick and Charles, Laird, Emma, myself, Fiona,
Wow.
Scott, Tony, Jack.
Scott, it
Um,
looks like you're holding a book there.
Oh yeah. What's that book
Well,
you got there?
what book you holding
you
there,
might see
there,
this stuff
Scott?
on there.
Oh, I didn't pull mine
On the
out
next
too. I've
slide
got
here.
mine. It's got all kinds of sticky notes in it, like Tom's. Tom's we got all kinds of sticky notes in there because I use it for a reference book all the
That book.
time. It's
Oh,
usually
great.
Yeah.
laying on my desk here, but
That's a
And I
great
was
book.
I was really happy to get all the guys to sign. Like I've had the majority of the fellowship sign my copy of my book. So
oh wow, that's good.
Um,
That's really good. Yeah. Wow.
yeah,
And there
that's a
you are with Rick.
picture with Rick in the research center.
Mhm. And what do we have here? There's a picture of you, your book cover. What's
So
this
my
other
book,
one
you
over
guys
here?
know about. It's been out for 2 years now, and I'm really
Mhm.
happy to say it's actually sold about 5,000 copies.
That's awesome. And it's a very good book, folks. If you do not have it already, you need to get that book. It is very, very good.
Thank you,
And I'm
Joe.
not just saying that because he's here. Tom will tell you the same thing. Him and I have gone through this book a few times, and like I just said, mine's got all kinds of sticky notes in it because I go through there and it's reference. I reference it quite often for different things. So very
Hmm.
good.
And I was surprised even like Rick Lagina on the island was like reading it and saying, Scott, he like things he didn't know about
Yeah.
reading in my book. I thought that was pretty cool. So,
Yep.
and then of course, John can mention his forthcoming
Yeah.
book.
So what's this all about, John?
It's about a hidden tradition, I guess you could say. It's Codes of the Hidden King. It's things that we've decoded, and it is absolutely fantastic when you see the things that we're going to bring to light. Gretchen spearheaded a lot of the research with myself and William Russell. Um, I won't go much into it, but when you see it, you know, the truths are just they're unbelievable. And we've been working at this, Gretchen and I and William for the past 2 years, or William and I for the past 3 years. So this has been a work in progress. But this should be out this summer.
I was just going to ask you, when are we going to see this
The
book come
summer
out?
of 2025, it will be released. We're in the last stages of this book. Um, we're all very happy with how this book's turned out. It is a phenomenal book. It reads well. Is well researched. The codes, the codices, speak volumes. And when you see what it's saying, you know, it's the commonality thing. The message is always the same. It's the same message over and over and over again. And as we've all discussed, including our friend Jake here, if it's repeatable, then there has to be something about it. There has to be something that's true about it. You don't repeat a message unless you really want to have the person decoding it take it and run with it.
Mhm.
These are messages that are old. These are messages that tell a truth.
Mhm.
And when you see it, so much of history makes sense.
Yep.
So that's due out, folks, summer of 2025.
And that's Sir Francis Bacon on the picture there.
That is Sir Francis Bacon.
And we were
Yep.
just talking about he may be involved in all of this very much.
He may be involved in all this. So
Mhm.
get the book and you'll figure out what that message is. But the message is always the same.
There's Jake. And the message is
You gotta buy the book, Jake.
Yeah.
that's fantastic. Well, I know you hinted to me a while back about this book and the work you guys were doing on it, and I tell you what, we're very interested
Oh,
in its
phenomenal.
release and getting this. I hope to get a signed copy by
Of
all three
course.
of you,
Of
and
course.
we'll have to have you on too when you're getting ready
Absolutely.
for a book release
Yeah.
to happen. Okay, so I think that's the end of the
Yep.
presentation, is it not? Do you want to take any questions at all, or
Yeah, sure.
anybody in the chat here? And be very careful with your questions. I won't say that I'll put them all up, but if you have any questions, we can certainly, without Jake asking about and giving you the message again. But yeah, so we can wrap this up with a few questions if anybody has any. I know we got a little bit of a delay, but I'm really intrigued by this book. I really am. How many pages are we talking?
Oh wow, we're in the edit process. It's close to 400 pages.
Wow. So it's
Now,
going to be a.
now we're gonna condense it down.
Mhm.
We have to go through the end of edits, formatting, of course. But it's a masterpiece. It's something that we all feel is part of our legacy, and it's
Good.
something that
That's great.
after we're gone, 100, 200, 300, 400, I think this book will stand the test of time. It,
Mhm.
it, it really kind of encapsulates things that, as a group of researchers and friends, we've been talking about for years.
Mhm.
And it encapsulates kind of the threads. And then when you start decoding it, when you start seeing that message over and over and over again, you realize, hey, we're not the only ones that wanted to preserve it. Over history, people have wanted to preserve this message. and you see it in the fraternities, and you see it in family lines.
Mhm.
The message is important. It's important enough to take the time and resources and money and code, because at some point, the realization was someone's going to decode, and
Mhm.
I think that's what we've done. I think what we've done hasn't been done in over 500 years,
Wow.
or
Wow.
and it
Yeah.
goes further back than that. It goes much further back than that. But the last time the crack was done was during the time of Queen Elizabeth, and but it goes much further back, and it goes much further forward. And again, when you see the messages and you see the main message, it's always the same because it's important. It's an important message, and I think the readers will be very happy with the content of the book. It's a masterpiece, and I can't say enough about the two co-authors, Gretchen Cornwall and William Russell. I mean, the it takes a collaboration, and
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
it's inspired by what Rick said. It takes a village. It takes a collaboration,
Yeah.
and in this case, I think this offering is going to be a tremendous offering for anyone that likes this kind of stuff. It's kind of has a bit of Dan Brown intrigue with real world examples and real world decoding.
Nice.
Things that have
Can't
been
wait.
hidden for years. So I'm very proud of the work.
Yeah, yeah, great. I can't wait to see or read this thing when it comes out. There was a couple people talking about the Ark of the Covenant in here, and one of the things that I think it says my name XX, my name is TAOXX. Talking about the Ark of the Covenant being removed. That's something that I had often said that you know, and it was just my own personal thought. And I'm not a researcher like you all do. I do my research by asking you to come on this podcast and sharing it with all of us because I want to learn. So I figured, hey, I want to learn. I want to share this with everybody. So you come on the show, watch this podcast. You can learn with me. And that's kind of how I do it. But my thought was always that the Ark of the Covenant was on Oak Island. It was brought there as a temporary holding place until it got its more permanent home somewhere else. That's what I always felt. Um, is that right or wrong? Who knows? And then, like Rick says, a theory is just a theory until you're holding it in your hand,
Yep.
And so, is that right or wrong? Have no idea. But that's kind of, and I kind of agreed with what I don't know, a male or female there. My name is, but that's kind of what I thought too, that it was taken to a different location. So, who knows? I mean, it might still be there, and I'm always afraid. And I've talked to Vanessa Lucido about this that when she's putting the big case on in the ground, she's
Yeah,
going to cut it in half.
right through it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, go right through it, cut it in half, and then when we see that big vortex over in Oak Island, we're gonna know. Oops, I think they found it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, so I was just looking here to see if we had any questions. Will Scott have copies for sale at Oak Island Con? Oh well, we don't know if he's going to be there or not, but maybe.
Yeah, that's a maybe right now. I mean, I can send people signed copies. I have some here. If anyone wants to message me on Facebook, or I'm happy to do that as well. I was going to give away a copy tonight with Jeff, but that didn't quite work out. But
Yeah,
definitely the
well, we
next,
can still
definitely
we
the
can
next time.
Yeah, we can still work that out. Unfortunately,
Okay.
Linda has all the capability of doing that, and I do
Of
not.
choosing a
That
person.
was
Yeah, yeah.
that was her thing. So, and she could not be here tonight to help out. She had other some family obligations that took her away.
Yeah.
So, there's a question from Z. At what point in Freemasonry does one learn about Francis Bacon's contribution to speculative Freemasonry? Oh, I
I mean, that's not so far from what I've experienced. It's not part of any ritual. They don't mention Francis Bacon. It's more the in-depth research and the history that people do outside of Masonry to learn about it. But it's not talked about in Masonry so far that I know that I'm aware of.
wow, interesting. Here's one from Jan, and I'm not sure who she's referring this to. Are you going to continue to do research for another book? Probably you, I would think, Scott, because you already have a book out. Are you continuing? Obviously, you're continuing research. So, are you working on
Yeah,
another
yeah.
book?
I mean, I've gone back and forth. Definitely continuing to do research for sure, 100%. Just not sure how feasible another book might be. John and I are working on some stuff as well, so it's definitely possible. It's just,
Well, thank
yeah, I don't know. I'm glad the show was renewed. I'm pretty sure now there's a season 13. So very likely you might see John and I back on the show if I know they want to continue pursuing the books.
Yep. Yeah. Oh,
I'm
for
really
sure.
happy to hear that they're going to finally go down deeper.
Yes.
I know
Yes.
I talked to Doug about that a year ago, and he was telling me, Scott, we've had these caissons to get down to a certain point, and then we have to stop, and we're missing the last 20 or 30 feet, and it's like, that's, if anything fell down, that's where it would be, right? So
Yep. Yep.
it's
Yep. And
frustrating that they've got so close and not gone all the way, right? So
exactly. And that's something that Tom and I talked about quite a bit about the fact that need to go deeper. You need to go deeper. And now we saw them putting a caisson in the ground and supposedly, and I'm still not exactly sure that they were, we're not there. We're not on the island. So, and we only get so little information from what they're doing. But they were talking about they're on the ledge of the opening to the solution channel, which is
right.
where I have been wanting them to go for all this time, get down into that solution channel. Now it seems like they're on the verge of that with this last caisson that they left in the ground all winter long.
Mm.
And then we got in the last, and I made a comment about this on the season finale that Marty had said, and I quote, "We now have an X marks the spot in the money pit." So is that final caisson that they put in the ground? Was he talking about the true X marks the spot? That's a quote from him. He was said that on, unless Prometheus changed the editing of his words around. That's what he said. So we now have an X on the marks the spot in the money pit. So let's find out. And the caisson was in there all winter. So I'd love to see what they're getting ready to do first. Put a rover down that thing with Ken DeBoer. I don't know, maybe so. Somebody made a comment here, Sherry, about thank you, Scott and John. Fantastic information. Thanks, Jeff. Dr. Pepper is basically prune juice. Another reason why I don't want to drink that stuff then. Oh, but yeah. So anyway, all right. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us before we
Well, I think Gretchen makes a great comment here that there are multiple arcs. There could be an arc of knowledge. The speculation that possibly some of Bacon's writings are there. So there, and in Freemasonry there are three major arcs. So the arc symbolism permeates kind of the Oak Island mystery, and so Gretchen's right on point with that. That there are multiple arcs, and the question is which arc is on Oak Island. And it could be 2, 3 different types of arcs. I do believe that there's a strong possibility that the Ark of the Covenant or a Masonic replica is sitting on Oak Island along with other things. There's some that speculate it's the Armor Christi, the relics of Christ. So and then talking with Scott, we know something's there. Masonically, something's there. It's just where. It's just that one thing. And I think now that we have a better understanding of the who, it's just a matter of finding the what. It's just a matter of time. Look, all the clues are out there, Jeff. It's a matter of spinning that combination wheel and eventually hitting those right 3 numbers, that right combination of events, and then and then the Oak Island opens its vault, so to speak, and we find out what really Oak Island is about.
Yeah.
But if it's multi-generational, you have to think what would hold the attention of a multi-generational
something very significant.
Correct.
Very significant.
It's just not a
one-shattering significant.
If we're talking treasure, just gold and silver and jewels,
no,
it would have been stripped away long ago and sold off.
Right.
What is it that is so significant in my mind that it would permeate a multi-generational, multi-fraternity, multi-family tradition where only the elite of the elite and the select of the select know, unless there's something of high significance on Oak Island. Right. I can't get away from that thought. You don't put those type of resources into something that's just gold.
Right. I agree. 100%.
And both John and I have been interested in Nolan's Cross over the years for different reasons. Like, people say the treasure maybe is not in the money pit; it might be somewhere else. And as I say, I keep coming up on this triple tau in my research with masonry and Oak Island, and I believe there's triple towers on the map that point to Oak Island. And one of the things I talked about in the war room, one of the war rooms, which they didn't show on TV, was the when you convert as Peter Amundsen did years ago, the Nolan's Cross into the Tree of Life.
Yes. Yes.
The very bottom of the Tree of Life, it's made up of spheres and paths.
Mhm.
The bottom path, the 32nd path, is called the Tau path, and it's the path that you enter. It's called the path of the Enterer. So I surmise that something could be buried underneath the Tau path. So they actually filmed me like going out with Gary and Jack. We did metal detecting, we did ground penetrating radar, and they actually found anomalies like deep underground. And
Wow.
they didn't show it on TV. They didn't come back to that, and that was frustrating because
Oh,
we found a really old axe head, which was cool, and some other stuff. But so to me, that Tau path is still of interest.
yes, I would say so.
And there was
Absolutely.
also part of it covered with a huge pile. Remember, John, there was a huge debris pile, literally like 30 feet high,
Yeah.
covering part of that path. So
And
we
why?
couldn't actually
Yeah.
get it all the way in there. But
Yeah. And so you wonder why haven't they investigated that further? Well, you know what? I mean, honestly, each season they go through and they have a plan for what they're going to work on. Now, some of that changes as they go along based upon what they find.
right.
But I mean, if anyone sitting at home thinks that, well, why can't you do all of this in a season in the months that you have? No way. I
No
mean,
way.
it's just too much. And they keep saying, well, how come you found this wall now? This wall that dates back this older, this well on lot 26 or lot 28. You're finding this well now. Why didn't you know about that a long time ago? There's just too much. And so they have to pick and choose what they're going to work on each season. Hopefully, they will get back to what you were just talking about. That's intriguing, very intriguing. I know John and I have had discussions about the Tree of Life.
It's
Many
interesting. Yeah,
times.
it's the whole Nolan's Cross, and that was one of the thrills this year. John, we had some time on the island to ourselves, and John took me around to all of the boulders of Nolan's Cross. For the
Mhm.
first time in my life, I actually got to touch them all and see them all, and in situ, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it
In
would
the
be.
past, I
Oh
think I'd
man.
seen 2 of them before, but not all of them.
Well, maybe someday when they get Oak Island tours going again, if they ever do. Oh my gosh, wouldn't that be
I'm
something to be
hearing
able to?
whispers that there might be some stuff, yeah, next year. So
Yeah,
we'll just
yeah.
Yeah.
I really hope so. Yeah, and
yeah.
and someday when this is all, oh, I don't know what just happened there. Oh, I must have clicked on something. But someday when all of this is done and over, and that the answers are all done, Oak Island will be somewhere that people will come to for years and years and years to come, going forward. So I really hope that's the case. It's funny that Albert makes this comment about 6 arcs and 12 menorahs. Um, that's interesting because I have another, and I'm gonna reach out to these folks again, because they had a very interesting story, talking about secret treaty number 1 from the original setting up of the America and the United States, and talking about a Ark of the Covenant that is in Pennsylvania. And we're going to revisit this a little bit because and this is something I did not know, and John, I think, has enlightened me on some of this, is that there are more than one ark, which is, something, and Gretchen we just talked about that a moment ago. So is it possible that they're spread around in different places? Yes, I guess it is if there's more than one, but I never knew there would more. Why would there be more than one? Just, that's still
Yeah,
kind of confuses me why there would be, but there was more than one menorah too.
for sure
So
there was more than one menorah. Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. So is there really in one in Ethiopia in that little building that's surrounded by the fence?
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and were there like, replicas made 2,000 years ago? That would be pretty cool. You wouldn't, and how would you even know the difference, right? If it was made the same way with the same wood and the same gold, overlay and everything.
Yep, exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. Wow. All right, folks, man, this has been fantastic. Guys, I thank you so much. Somebody was asking a question when you're going to come back on. I guess when you have more information to share, when you find out if Prometheus is going to show some of the things you could not share with us here tonight, that would be great. Love to have you back on. As I told Corian, Christopher Morford knows, Gretchen, my door is open to you guys all the time. If you have
Appreciate
something
that.
you want to share with us all, let me know, and I would love to. We'll schedule you. We'll get you on here, and I know we've been waiting for like a couple months to get you guys on here for
Yeah,
this.
we were both sick for a little bit, and yeah.
Well, that and plus you had to get permissions and all this other stuff. We understand that very much so.
Yeah.
So, but whenever you have something you would like to share, my door is open to you. This podcast is here so we can learn. And you guys brought the education to us today for sure. Thank you so very much. Appreciate that.
You.
Guys, folks, thank you for being here with us tonight. And as always, if I say that if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you like the content of what John and Scott shared with us here tonight, consider giving us a thumbs up. Give us a like. That helps out in the YouTube algorithms and getting this show out to more and more people. But we really appreciate all of you being here with us tonight. And again, you guys and Christina, thank you for doing your hard work in there and keeping the channel moderated. And Linda's place tonight, we appreciate that as well. There's Linda. She must have just got done with her family stuff, so she's in the chat
nice.
now, I see. But anyway, thank you all so very much. And with that, I'll say good night and catch you next time right here on the
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you to everybody with all the comments. I've seen them go by, but I haven't had a chance to read them yet. So look at those afterwards.
Yep. Okay. And
Thank you.
if you want to, anybody wants to comment after the fact, maybe John and Scott would like to go and look at the YouTube channel, and they can go and comment and answer some of your questions that you may have there later on. So feel free to comment afterwards. All right. With that, we'll say good night.
Great. Thanks, Jeff.